Welcome to the training module for the Raven Surgical Robot System. Through this module, you will learn the background, structure, and components of the Raven robot, as well as how to utilize them. First, let's begin with a brief history of the development of the robot. Currently, there is only one FDA-approved surgical robot in use, the Da Vinci Surgical System. The University of Washington Biorobotics Laboratory has developed a new robot, the Raven robot. The original intent of development was to create a robot that would be utilized to provide treatment as quickly as possible to injured military personnel. The goal was to have an open-source robotic system that allows the surgeon to control the robot from a distance. This concept is called telerobotics. With telerobotics, a surgeon can be operating the robot from a safe, secure location while providing surgical medical care to an injured person across the room or even across the country or the globe. The Raven has been tested in a number of telerobotic environments, such as the NEMO trial pictured here, where the Raven was located inside of a submarine and the surgeon was located on land. The open-source capability of the Raven robot is the future of robotic surgery. Now that you are familiar with the background of the Raven, let's move on to the training module. The goals of the module are to familiarize you with the overall structure of the Raven, as well as the detail and function of the various components. Let's begin your training with an overview of the structure of the Raven robot. Keep in mind that the simulation set up in the laboratory that you see here is more rudimentary than you might find in an OR to allow for repeated and multifactorial research trials. The Raven is composed of three components: the master console, also known as the surgical console, the slave console, also known as the surgical site, and the power console. Anytime we refer to the master console throughout this training video or during testing sessions in the lab, we are referring to the location where the surgeon sits and controls the robotic arms. Anytime we refer to the surgical site or slave console, we are referring to the location of the robotic arms and instruments. The surgical console is set up such that you can view the movements of the robotic instruments on a 3D screen behind the master controllers. You will therefore need to wear 3D glasses while working on the Raven. So keep in mind that if you normally wear glasses but you also own contact lenses, you may want to wear your contacts for your sessions with the Raven to avoid having to wear 3D glasses over your regular glasses. The Raven is equipped with surgical instruments just like the Da Vinci robot that have 7 degrees of freedom, providing even greater range of motion than a human wrist joint. The surgeon operates these tools by the use of 2 master controls that are seen here. The surgeon uses their thumb and middle fingers of each hand to operate the master controls. Utilizing the middle finger allows the surgeon to brace the device with their index finger for more control. The finger grips are also adjustable to accommodate all finger types. Prior to utilizing the master console, the surgeon must calibrate the instruments. To do this, the user must press the surgical handle downward onto the red calibration button until they hear it buzz twice. Once calibrated, the instruments are ready to use. The surgeon operates the instruments with slow, deliberative movements, and the robotic instruments mimics his or her movements. If the surgeon reaches a point where his or her hands are not in a comfortable location, or are perhaps interfering with one another, the clutch function must be used. The clutch function is controlled by the footboard at the surgical console. While performing the surgical task, the surgeon must depress the pedal marked 0-1 while making all movements. The clutch function is activated by releasing the foot pedal. When the surgeon desires to reposition his or her hands, he or she must release the clutch pedal. When doing so, the surgical instruments will be locked in place, but the surgeon can move his or her hands to a more ergonomical location. Then, to begin using the master controllers again, the clutch pedal should be depressed and the instruments are freely movable again. The other foot pedals seen here will not be used in this training. Please avoid depressing them during your sessions. Now let's talk about the surgical site, also known as the slave site. This is the place of the surgical field. In this study, the surgical field will consist of a pegboard with 12 pegs and 6 blocks. Your task in this study will be to pick up a block with one instrument, transfer it in midair to the opposite instrument, and place the block on a peg on the opposite side of the pegboard, as demonstrated in this video. You will then repeat the same process for each block until all blocks are transferred to one side. Finally, you will repeat the process, returning the blocks to the original location that they were at the start of the trial. In other words, you will transfer all 12 blocks from the right side of the board to the left and back again to complete one successful trial. For this study, you will be asked to complete 2 consecutive trials of this task within a set benchmark time limit during your first session in the lab. You will then come back for a second session on a different day in which you will complete the same task again. You will be randomly assigned to either the Raven or DaVinci subject groups. If assigned to the Raven group, you will complete the training task on the Raven. If in the DaVinci group, you will complete the training task on the DaVinci. All subjects will then complete the task during the second session on the DaVinci robot. You will receive email instructions as to which subject group you have been assigned to. This email will also include instructions on the location of the laboratory that houses the robotic system you will be working on. This concludes the Raven training module. Feel free to watch this video again if you need to review some of the concepts of how to use the Raven. And don't worry, you'll get plenty of time to familiarize yourself with the surgical robots and their controls prior to beginning any timed task. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to seeing you in the lab really soon.